Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Erdley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing, breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Welcome, it's episode 94 of the Resilient Retail Game Plan. My name is Catherine Erdley and I am your host as well as the founder of the Resilient Retail Club. You can find out more at resilientretailclub.com. So today what I want to talk to you about is your profit potential. Well, what does that even mean? Well, your profit potential is really about you getting to grips and understanding with just how profitable your business can be. And if there's anything that is holding you back or making it difficult for you to meet your profit potential. I think that profit is something that is getting even more important as we move into 2022 in terms of, I'd say, if I look at the growth that a lot of businesses saw in 2020, 2021, typically speaking, at times when business growth is fast, where lots of people are growing and sales are growing, then profit tends to be something that people are less concerned about because there's this sense that, well, as long as the sales growing, as long as the top line's growing, then we don't have to worry about it too much. But I would say even when your top line sales are growing, it's still very important to keep an eye on your profitability. But I'd say what's happened this year is I've had more and more conversations with people about profitability because, number one, there have been certainly slightly slower growth for people who were perhaps more reliant on Facebook advertising in previous years and maybe have seen that slow down. Also, there's been this growing customer concern or lack of confidence, which has meant that even if people's sales have been growing, they've probably felt like they've worked harder for them. I don't know if that's something that you relate to, but certainly a lot of people I've been speaking to have been talking about how it just feels like it's been that much harder. And I think that one of the elements that happens when maybe you've been growing really fast and either it slows down, even if you're still growing, but maybe the pace of growth is not quite as slow, then that's when people start really turning their attention to their profitability. Now, arguably, I would say that from day one, you want to be focused in on your profits. So if you're listening to this and you're first starting out and you're thinking, well, I'm not in that position, it's still worth going through the different elements of what makes up your profit potential because I think it's really important to be aware of them and to build on them right from the get-go. The book that I'm working on, Tame Your Tiger, How to Stop Your Product Business Eating You Alive, which I just submitted my first draft earlier this month. So hopefully will be out early next year sometime. That's really all about the profitability and it goes into these areas in a lot more depth. But really what I wanted to do in this episode is just get you to think about what is the profit potential of your business and where might you be held up. And I just remembered, of course, when I'm looking at the podcast schedule, if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, which is the 26th of May, it's my birthday today. So there you go, just a little side note. Wanted to drop that in before I carried on talking about profits. So what makes up your profit potential? I'd say that there are 5 main areas that I want to talk you through today, 5 places that you can really think about where you can maximize your profit. And if you're listening to this and you've kind of got this niggling feeling in the back of your head that maybe your profit isn't where you want it to be, maybe you're consistently underperforming when you look at the final numbers, or you just have this sense that something's not quite right, then definitely listen to these 5 areas and ask yourself if you had to guess, or if you had to make an informed decision as to where it is in your business that you might be losing profit. Where do you think it is? It could be an element of all of them. Most people I work with have room for improvement in lots of different areas of their profitability. It'd be interesting to see what you think is the issue in your business. So the first element of your profitability, your profit potential, is your in margin. So your in margin is the percentage of profit that you will make hypothetically when you make a sale. So if you buy something for £5 and you sell it for £12 and you're VAT registered, you will make £5 profit. So you'll get £10 net after the VAT is taken off, and you yourself will pocket £5 of that £10 because £5 goes on the cost of goods sold. So that would be a 50% profit margin. That is often the building block. And I do think it's really, really important because ultimately it's very hard for your profitability to kind of shake out well in the end if that first number is really, really tight. So if you, for example, are only making 20% profit or 25% profit, then that's going to be really hard because there's not much you can do. Even if your sales go up, if your profitability is very low, then it's going to be hard for you to really make many improvements down the line, as it were. So it's almost like the gateway into your profit. If that number's not correct, if it's too low, then you will need to really work on that, improve it, whether that's through getting better prices from the products that you're sourcing, whether that's reviewing your selling price to the customer. Whatever it is, you will need to make some adjustments to try and get to, at the very minimum, 50%. Ideally, especially if you're hoping to wholesale yourself later on, then you really want that to be even higher, maybe in this sort of, well, to be honest, if you want to wholesale, you probably want that number to be more like 65 to 70% at retail, so that when you are selling at wholesale, then you've got that room. So that is the first thing to look at. And the other thing to know about your in margin is that it is under pressure at the moment. So everybody's in margins are under pressure because costs keep going up. So if you haven't reviewed them recently, then have a look and make sure you go over all of the invoices that you see for your products. Make sure that you really understand how much it is that you are paying so that you can be sure and confident that you're not eroding that in margin without noticing. Because again, if you think about it as the pillar or the keystone, the foundation of your business, whatever you want to call it, all of your profitability is built on that in margin. So if that is being eroded, then it's going to come out further down the line in your profit and loss account. So definitely keep an eye on it and make sure it's something that you review regularly. So the second element then is your out margin. Your in margin is the theoretical sales profit that you'll get based on the amount of money that you pay when it comes in to your business, when the product comes into your business. So if it comes in from a supplier, that's your in margin. When it goes out to the customer, that's your out margin. So let's say, for example, that you have this item and it's £12 and you pay £5 for it. In theory, your profit margin is 50%. However, your out margin, let's say that instead of selling it for £12, you were running a 20% off promotion, which means that you actually sold it for £9.60. So obviously, if you're selling it for £9.60, then your actual margin, the margin that you really actually achieved on the sale, is going to be lower than that 50%. Now, this is something that you would want to track on a monthly basis. You would want to have a look at your sales in a particular month and the cost of those goods. You can either do it if you've got it set up through your accounting system, you could look at it that way, or you can have a spreadsheet with all that information on. But ultimately, what you want to look at is an understanding of, okay, I might have an in margin of 60%, but if you've got a significant amount of discounting going on or other things, so for example, it may be that your best-selling product's actually really low margin, so it's skewing your overall business. Your out margin is equally important for you to manage. And it's actually one of those things that people aren't necessarily as clued into when it comes to their business because it's harder to get your hands on. It's well worth the effort because it's really helping you understand so much. So in the book, I talk about the tiger and I talk about the tiger's bite. So if you feel like you have a business that's making you feel nervous and uncomfortable, then maybe you have a tiger business. How can you tell if it's a tiger business? Well, you look at the size of the bite. So the size of the top teeth is the in margin. So the first bite that comes out, because you can't have a good out margin if you don't have a good in margin. So the in margin comes first, that drives everything. But at the same time, the bottom teeth, if you like, the other part of the bite is the out margin. And if you're consistently discounting a huge amount, always running sales, clearance events, blanket discounts. Maybe you've got an overly generous welcome discount running at all times, which people use. Those are all ways that you can erode your out margin. And also if you sell, let's say, for example, you don't actually sell that much at full price, you mostly sell things at sale price. So you have these huge spikes when you're on sale, then you may find that your out margin is not as healthy as you would like it to be. And many years ago, I was hired into a reasonably small retailer as a kind of greenfield role, if you like. So I had to kind of come in and create all the reports and look at all of the different elements of the business. And one of the things that I discovered was that we were actually selling a huge amount on either promotion or it was all the clearance stock that we had far too much of that was actually driving the sales. So the in margins didn't look too bad, but when you actually looked at the out margins, it was less than ideal. Let's just put it that way. So the only thing I'd say, which is good news, is if you've not been tracking your out margin and you're under pressure on your in margin, which let's face it, most of us are, then there may be some way for you to actually improve your out margin, even if you're under pressure on the rising costs. So it's kind of a little balance back, especially if it's something that you feel that maybe you've been giving away too much in terms of discounts, then this might be a really good way for you to look at the balance and between what you're selling at full price and what you're selling at discount. And if you can swing it back towards more full price, then that can help you offset any decrease in your in margin. So it's definitely things that you can do there around the out margin, as long as it's something that you can see and you can track. So the third element then of your profit potential, this is to do with your stock turn. So how quickly are you turning your stock? There are really two elements that determine whether or not a product business is profitable. Number one is how good is your in margin. Number two is how quickly do you turn your stock. So how quickly do you get your money back after you've paid it out to buy stock? Is it immediate? So as soon as you buy something, it comes in very quickly and it sells through and you get the money back. That generally will give you a very healthy cash flow. It's also the reason people love to do pre-sales and things like that, because they actually reversing that. So they're getting the money for the products, maybe even before they've had to pay out for them. On the flip side, the longer that gap is, so let's say you purchase something and then it sits in your business for, say, a year and a half, then that's going to be a long time before it sells and before you get that money back. And that's where a lot of trapped cash happens in a business. So profit potential element number 3 is looking at your stock and how productive it's being. And the thing that makes this slightly tricky is that it will depend. You will have pockets of stock which are unproductive and you will have some which are turning very fast. So you may see that overall the business is on, say, you've got like a couple of months worth of stock. So one of the ways of measuring stock is how many weeks worth you've got. So if you were to keep selling at the current rate as your current average weekly sales, how many weeks would your stock last you for? And that really varies by business. Some people will be carrying a year's worth of stock. Arguably, though, you want to kind of bring that down. It's really all about getting that sweet spot between have you got so little stock you're losing sales because you're out of stock of things versus having so much stock that it's eating up all your spare cash. And there's lots of things that you can look at in terms of your stock turn, lots of ways of analysing your different pockets of data, your different pockets of stock, looking at things like your by category of stock or by colour, really digging into what you've got and understanding not all stock is created equal. You may overall have a decently fast stock turn, but could it be even better? And again, I think what's exciting about this area of profit potential is that if overall you're feeling the pressure from your in margin, it's all of the different levers that you can pull. So for example, even if you can't do much about your intake margin because of costs going up, but you can get better at managing your stock and run on less stock than last year, you're still probably going to end up in a better position in terms of profit. So there's real potential here to improve your profitability once you start managing and measuring and putting a plan in place for all of these different elements. So point number 4 then about stock. So you've got how quickly it's turning, but I think there's also just an element of how much stock you've actually got full stop. Do you have a plan in place? It kind of ties into the stock turn because obviously the faster you're turning your stock, the less you'll need to have in order to do your sales plan. Having a stock budget's really important, can help you stay on track, and it can help you stay accountable and stop your stock kind of running away with you so that you've just got this massive amount which is sucking up all your cash. So putting into place a stock plan, it hand in hand with doing some stock analysis and really digging into where your stock is performing versus where it isn't. Those two things together can be hugely beneficial when it comes to your profit potential. It can really help you understand more about what's going on in your business, identify where you can reduce stock, where you can reduce unproductive stock in particular. You don't want to reduce your really good stock, your best sellers, and how you can keep moving forward. And basically, just as I said, the less you're spending on stock, the more profitable you'll get, and the better you will be, even if you feel like your hands are tied with other elements such as your intake margin. And then the final element of your profit potential are your fixed costs. So again, in going back to the books, in the book we talk about the unproductive stock being called the tail. So the bigger the tiger, the bigger the tail. So how much stock have you got in your business? And then the fixed cost is like, how much are you feeding the tiger? How much are you actually feeding the beast? And I think this is another element where you want to really get a sense of a kind of back of the envelope idea of how does your business break even. Once you've got that out margin, once you've calculated, once you know what it is, you can work out, all right, if I sell £10,000 in a month, take off the VAT, that's around 8,333 net. If I have a out margin of 50%, that means that those sales will be generating me, say, 4,100, that kind of thing. So that's my profit. Okay, so what are my fixed costs? So those would be the costs to do with things like staffing and facilities, utilities, other bills, recurring bills. What does that look like? Are you covering your bills? Do you have a break-even plan? Do you know what that is? So there's lots of different elements that can go into the final piece, looking at your fixed costs, because that's really also an area where you can keep an eye on it, and you may have to make some decisions around, okay, this is what my profitability looks like, this is how I'm trying to improve it, this is what I'm trying to do here, this is what I think I actually can make on an average month, and therefore, are your fixed costs too high, too low? What is it that you need to do to make the business feel a little bit more comfortable? And it can also help you have confidence to make decisions. So sometimes when we do this exercise with people, actually what it's showing them is they absolutely need to be getting themselves a unit, because actually they've got them the money. When you look at the sales, then even if we go with their lowest sales in 12 months, there's still enough money for them to justify having this unit. Things like that. It's just all really helpful and a useful way of looking at things, and ties together all of the different pieces and helps you basically take control of what your profitability potential could be. So those are the 5 areas that I would suggest that you look at if you're concerned about your profits. Have a look at your intake margin, have a look at your out margin, so what your final sales are actually generating, taking into account any discounts. Looking at stock turn, how quickly are you turning your stock? How much do you have? And is any of it unproductive? What can you do there to pull back? And then what are your fixed costs? How much are you spending each month on the business? Is that right? Is that something that needs to be adjusted? Like, what do you need to do in terms of making the business feel more comfortable? And those 5 elements between them really make up your profit potential. So if you're somebody who's been fast growth, and now maybe you feel like it's leveling off a little bit, or you're starting to feel concerned about things, you're starting to feel like you have a tiger, then these are some areas for you to really think about and to dig into in more detail. And of course, if you want more help with this, if you want someone to work with you on the detail, then do check out resilientretailclub.com/strategy. It's my new strategy offering. It basically is a month-long process where I work with you in your business on identifying your sales strategy and your profit potential. So we will dig into what is going on in your business, and I will create for you tailored recommendations on how to maximize your sales strategy and also to meet your profit potential. So take a look at resilientretailclub.com/strategy and find out all about it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Why not come over to Instagram at Resilient Retail Club and let me know what you thought of it. What do you think is going on in your business? Where do you find it tricky? What are your concerns around your profitability? Do come and have a chat. Let me know. And of course, if you have a moment to rate and review the podcast, that would be fantastic. You can rate it in the Spotify app or in iTunes. And of course, if you want to leave a review, you can do so in iTunes. And I appreciate all of them. And of course, if you subscribe or follow the podcast, you'll be the first to know about every new episode. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, then I invite you to check out resilientretailclub.com. The Resilient Retail Club is the membership for anyone wanting to start, grow or scale a profitable product business. No more trawling Google trying to find the answers to your questions or wading through general business advice that speaks mainly to service-based businesses. Whether you're still at the idea stage or you've been going for a while but want to get more focused and organised when it comes to your business, the Resilient Retail Club is the place for you. With a library of courses tailored to creative product businesses, several live sessions a month, and a supportive and active community, the Resilient Retail Club is the perfect membership to help you hit your goals faster. Check it out at resilientretailclub.com.